We're almost there. This is 1.7, so now we're moving out of Teach and Assess. We're at Rubric 3, which is Reflect. How does the candidate analyze and describe the impact of their asset and needs-based lesson planning, teaching, and assessment of student learning? Explain how the lesson supports the whole class and 3 focus students. And I've highlighted the pieces you need to pay attention to. Candidate connects the importance of knowing students' assets and learning needs to student learning. Hold on to that. This is where you're showing that, yes, it was good that I learned a lot about my students before I planned and before I taught them. And analyzes and describes how knowing this information can lead to the development of instruction that is supporting, engaging, and challenging to learners. So knowing all that stuff, how did your lesson become better to support, engage, and challenge them? And then you have to break it down for the whole class and the 3 focus students. So what I wrote here is important. This rubric is all about your written narrative, reflection on what you learned. So all points come from that. So you want to make sure you've done a really good job with that. I put down 4 musts here. Write about how your preparation beforehand to really know your students, and in particular their assets and learning needs, set you up in your planning and shaped your teaching. Write about how this kind of knowledge sets you up for future meaningful, engaging teaching that will matter to your students. So it's not just about that you did this great, pay attention to my kids, learn about them, and I taught this great lesson. How is this a practice that teachers should have all the time, and how does that matter? How is that going to matter to your teaching in the long run? Why should this be a part of your good teaching, to really know your students and work from what they come with? Then the last part, you want to break it down again. Write about how this knowledge matters to teaching a whole class, do a paragraph, and write about how this knowledge mattered to your teaching of each of your focus students. And again, I'm going to suggest a paragraph for each. Don't clump them together. Okay? This matters because the knowledge I gained for focus student 1 allowed me to such and such and such and such. And in the future, when I work with English learners, this will help me da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so to move to a level 4, you need to provide a clear rationale for how and why adaptations to instruction were made or not made during the lesson to meet the whole class, group, and or individual student needs. So this asks you to be purposefully self-critical of your teaching, not to be judgmental. Don't say that you did a bad lesson. Just say, I would have, I might have, these are things I need to think about. But you need to reflect and improve. This is all about improving and reflecting on your teaching. So again, with evidence, choose episodes where your teaching move made a difference for your students. What made it work? So a question, a prompt, a bit of modeling. What did it do to move your students' learning? And you can find that in the evidence in your videos. Choose episodes where you could have done a little better. Describe why this should be done better based on your students' response. So you might have given some instruction to a child and they began doing something, but it becomes clear that they don't quite get it. You'll have to adjust your instruction, but you might ask yourself, what might I have done differently in that moment? And that might be the evidence that you provide in this narrative. And level 5, again, UDL, supporting individual learning differences, working towards an inclusive classroom, and the idea that you're analyzing your planning to get better at things. For level 5, you need to describe how your flexibility in instruction purposefully makes it so that your students get what they need. So this is adjusting instruction along the way, etc. Taking into account who they are and their different ways of learning while bringing all students together in shared learning endeavor. So this is asking a lot, okay? So you need to know who they all are, but you also need to know how to bring them all together. You need to know how each of them is in their learning and their assets and needs, and also how to bring them all together in learning. Okay, so it's a bit of teacher nirvana, something to work towards.